From our Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Aylia Batool. Muslim civil rights in the United States are facing mounting pressure under President Donald Trump's second term. Exclusive highlights from the interview of USCMO's Usama Jamal in today's show, so stay tuned. The FBI has executed a search warrant at an elections office in Fulton County, Georgia. This is part of a Justice Department probe into alleged voter fraud in the 2020 U.S. presidential election. Multiple media reports say the search is linked to a federal effort to seize election records from the county. The county includes Atlanta, Georgia's capital and largest city. The investigation centers on claims repeatedly made by President Donald Trump, who has insisted the 2020 election was stolen from him after his loss to former President Joe Biden. Georgia was key focus on Trump's allegations. However, the reviews during his first term found no evidence of widespread fraud. Courts have rejected similar claims in several states. After the election, Trump pressed Georgia officials to overturn the result, including a recorded call asking Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to find votes. Fulton County, which has a largely non-white electorate and voted heavily for Biden, has remained central to Trump's accusations. Federal prosecutors are still seeking access to 2020 ballots and related records. Federal authorities arrested 16 people in Minneapolis during demonstrations against federal immigration enforcement operations. According to Attorney General Pam Bondi, the suspects are charged with assaulting, resisting, or impeding federal law enforcement officers. Writing on X, Bondi said she was on the ground in Minneapolis and warned that more arrests are expected. Bondi added that the Justice Department will continue enforcing federal law under President Donald Trump despite ongoing protests. Demonstrations in Minneapolis have continued since early January, focusing on ICE and Border Patrol agents and their shootings of 2 U.S. citizens in the city. Tensions escalated after the killing of Alex Pretti, a U.S. citizen who was shot to death by a Border Patrol agent during an immigration operation on Saturday. It was the second fatal shooting by federal agents in Minneapolis this month. The first was 37-year-old Renee Good, who was also a U.S. citizen. Immigration officials' killings of Good and Pretti have prompted calls from local and state leaders for independent investigations and greater accountability. Democratic Congresswoman Representative Ilhan Omar has sharply criticized President Donald Trump for hateful rhetoric. She spoke a day after being assaulted at a town hall meeting. Speaking at a press conference in her home city of Minneapolis, Omar said threats spike whenever Trump attacks her or the Somali American community she represents. She said the man who attacked her was angry that Trump's order to deport Somalis was not producing enough deportations. Omar said he targeted her because he believed she was protecting the Somali community. She added that all Americans are protected by the Constitution. The suspect, identified as 55-year-old Anthony Kazmierczak, was subdued by attendees after allegedly spraying Omar with an unknown substance. He faces third-degree assault charges and is being held at Hennepin County Jail. Minneapolis police said the FBI is leading the investigation. Activists and prosecutors held a Candlelight Vigil Wednesday outside the United States Department of Veteran Affairs. They gathered to honor Alex Pretti, a 37-year-old intensive care nurse killed by federal Border Patrol agent in Minneapolis on Saturday. Demonstrators gathered with signs condemning U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, and called for an end to federal raids and shootings. Law enforcement officers were seen maintaining security as protesters assembled near the federal building. Participants lit candles, laid flowers, and observed moments of silence in Pretti's memory, describing him as a dedicated healthcare worker. Organizers said the vigil was meant to demand accountability and independent investigations. Pretti's death was the second fatal shooting of a U.S. citizen by federal agents in the city this month, intensifying protests and calls for oversight of immigration enforcement nationwide. Students gathered at Sproul Plaza at the University of California, Berkeley, to protest U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, operations. The students said the rally was held in solidarity with protesters in Minneapolis, where anger has been growing over recent federal immigration actions that have killed 2 people. Protests in Minneapolis have continued since early January and intensified after a U.S. Border Patrol agent shot and killed ICU nurse Alex Pretti. It was the second fatal shooting of a U.S. citizen by federal agents in the city this month. The incidents have heightened tensions nationwide, with local and state leaders calling for independent investigations. They are raising questions about federal enforcement practices. Muslim civil rights in the United States are facing mounting pressure under President Donald Trump's second term, according to Usama Jamal, Secretary General of the U.S. Council of Muslim Organizations, or USCMO. Speaking exclusively to Muslim Network TV, Jamal said the current Trump administration poses deeper challenges than the first. He said there are fewer internal restraints and a more aggressive approach towards civil liberties. Jamal said Muslim Americans are under pressure on multiple fronts, including immigration enforcement, political targeting, and efforts to curb First Amendment rights, particularly around advocacy for Palestine.
President Trump's influence or effect of his first term versus the second term is that the first term was something that we all need to know and to learn about President Trump, who is President Trump, and for him to know more about the Muslim American community. It was an exploration of character, of attitude, of policies. It was a little mild because the president was surrounded by a little bit more experienced staff and advisors.
Jamal warned that rhetoric targeting Somali Americans in Minnesota and attacks linked to Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar have fueled hostility against Muslim communities. He said Muslims are also being swept into broader national crackdowns affecting Latino immigrants and student activists.
We were able to survive the first term of Donald Trump, whereas the second term of Donald Trump, he comes with much more confidence. Especially his win was a landslide win. And also he's surrounded now by much more Islamophobic advisors that we see the impact of this advices that they give to the president, that we are embraced for confrontation frankly. We are resilient. We are determined to protect and to defend our rights as Americans, and to be the champion of civil rights in America.
He strongly criticized moves by Texas and Florida officials to label the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR, as a terrorist organization, calling them unconstitutional and politically motivated. Despite the challenges, Jamal said Muslim Americans are becoming more politically engaged, building alliances and preparing legal challenges.
We are joining hands with those who are as well facing the same issue as immigrants or as minorities in America. So we call upon our community to steadfast, to participate in the political process, to believe in the judicial system of America, to believe in the Constitution, and to defend the Constitution of the United States because it guaranteed the rights of the First Amendment, freedom of speech, as well as the separation of church and state, and that means there is a freedom for religious practice.
He described the moment as a critical test of American democracy, saying Muslims are ready to defend civil rights, not only for their community, but for the future of the United States itself. Republican Texas Governor Greg Abbott is escalating his fight with the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR. Details coming up next.
name is Layla. I was an average kid until Zula Inc. broke into my life because my dad discovered time travel. After that, everything changed.
You're the new girl Layla, right?
Whoa! What if I don't fit in?
Abdullah!
Do I hear my name? Welcome to Vancouver, cuz.
Whoa!
You four have been specially chosen to take our project into the next generation.
You can time travel?
Abdullah! No! Abdullah! Where?
Do you really think I don't know why we had to leave Seattle, Mama?
Now here, keep these close. These should never leave your wrist.
This virtual reality game is crazy. You can even eat. This is reality, buddy. We zoomed through a wormhole.
Oh no! My Go Watch! It's gone!
What does this do?
That's Al-Khwarizmi. You know, the father of mathematics. It's because of him we have algorithms.
I will not stop until your legacy, everyone's legacy, lies in ruins. Of course it was you. You little rascals ruined everything.
Your fate will be great. Just don't give up.
Time Hoppers.
Welcome back. Republican Texas Governor Greg Abbott is escalating his fight with the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR. He is urging the state attorney general to revoke the group's nonprofit status after designating the nation's largest Muslim advocacy group a foreign terrorist and transnational organization in November. Abbott has accused the group of acting as a front for Hamas and directed the Texas Department of Public Safety to open a criminal investigation. CAIR has sued the state, calling the designation defamatory and without evidence. Attorney General Ken Paxton, who is also a Republican, has rejected that claim and labeled CAIR's lawsuit baseless. The governor's order bars CAIR from owning property in Texas and authorizes the Attorney General to shut the organization down. In a letter, Abbott asked Paxton to use his authority to strip CAIR of its corporate charter and block its affiliates from operating in the state. Abbott said state law gives the Attorney General broad power to regulate nonprofits accused of violating the law. CAIR and the Attorney General's office have been contacted for comment. A civil rights attorney also sued Abbott, Paxton, and state police over the designation. Israeli soldiers carried out overnight raids across the occupied West Bank, including the family home of a Palestinian man who they shot dead earlier in the day. According to Palestinian officials, soldiers entered the town of Sair, northeast of Hebron, late Wednesday. Troops also stormed the Al-Kafan area, raiding the home of Qusay Maher Halaika, who had been killed hours earlier near Jerusalem. Witnesses said Israeli forces searched the house, damaged property, and detained several family members. Some relatives were beaten during the raid. Soldiers sealed off the neighborhood, forced shops to close, and questioned young men in the area. The Palestinian Civil Affairs Authority said 28-year-old Halaika from the town of Shoyukh was shot dead by Israeli soldiers. They also are holding his body. The Israeli military claimed Aylia attempted a stabbing attack at a checkpoint south of Jerusalem. Palestinian figures say more than 1,100 Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, since October 2023. The International Court of Justice has declared Israel's occupation of Palestinian territory illegal and called for the evacuation of settlements. Illegal Israeli settler attacks and home demolitions displaced 818 Palestinians across the occupied West Bank this month. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said 688 Palestinians were forced out of 8 communities due to settler violence. That accounts for more than 40% of all Israeli settler-related displacements recorded so far in 2025. Another 130 people were displaced by demolitions, pushing the total to 818. The UN office said the remaining 100 residents of Ras Said Bedoun community near Jericho were driven out after reported attacks and threats. The agency said Israeli settlers damaged grazing land, blocked access to a key spring, stole livestock, and destroyed property, undermining livelihoods. The UN also reported that Israeli soldiers have been demolished dozens of Palestinian-owned structures in Kafr Aqab, in occupied East Jerusalem. It said 2025 has seen the highest demolition levels there nearly in 2 decades. The International Court of Justice ruled in July 2024 that Israel's occupation is illegal and called for all Israeli settlements to be dismantled. The United States and the African Union have agreed to create a strategic infrastructure and investment working group to deepen economic cooperation and attract private investment. According to a joint statement, the group aims to strengthen U.S.-Africa economic ties, support job creation, and boost long-term prosperity on both sides. Officials say the working group will lay the foundation for strategic economic cooperation that could shape the relationship for years. The agreement was announced after talks in Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, between U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau and African Union Commission Chair Mahmoud Ali Yusuf. Both sides highlighted trade and infrastructure as key pillars for a peaceful and prosperous Africa. The working group will bring together U.S. and African Union officials and experts to identify investment opportunities in major infrastructure projects. Planned focus areas include supply chains, transport corridors, energy networks, and regulatory cooperations. Landau is visiting several African countries during the trip, alongside the commander of the U.S. Africa Command. Google has agreed to pay $68 million to settle a private lawsuit in a California federal court over claims its voice assistant secretly recorded users. The lawsuit alleges that Google Assistant was activated without consent and captured private conversations. Those recordings were then sent to Google's servers, even when users did not use a passphrase. According to the complaint, Android devices are designed to activate only after hearing trigger phrases like "Hey Google" or "Okay Google." However, the suit claims the assistant was sometimes turned on by mistake. When that happened, private conversations were allegedly recorded and transmitted without users' knowledge. The feature is used across many devices, including phones, smart speakers, laptops, tablets, and wireless headphones. Google said it agreed to the $68 million payout to avoid prolonged litigation. The settlement still requires approval from Judge Beth Lapson Freeman. The case follows a similar move earlier this month when Apple agreed to pay $95 million to settle claims involving its Siri voice assistant. An immigration judge has granted asylum to Chinese national Guan Heng, who was detained by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, in August. The 38-year-old had filmed sites linked to alleged human rights abuses by the Chinese government against Uyghurs. His detention had raised fears he could be returned to China and face prosecution. On Wednesday, the judge approved his asylum claim, a decision seen as increasingly rare. His lawyer, Shen Shuang, said Guan showed exceptional moral courage and deserved protection. Human rights activists supported the case. Democratic lawmaker Raja Krishnamurthy also urged approval in a letter to Homeland Security Secretary Christina Wem. Guan documented possible detention centers in Chinese-occupied East Turkestan called Xinjiang by the Chinese government. The United Nations has said China's actions there may amount to crimes against humanity, a charge Beijing denies. The government has 30 days to appeal. Guan remains in detention. His mother said the family is overwhelmed with relief. Scientists have developed smart nanoparticles that can destroy harmful proteins tied to dementia, cancer, and other diseases. These proteins often are hard for the body to remove. Many are also difficult to treat with standard drugs. The research is detailed in a new article published by Nature Nanotechnology. The work was led by Professor Bingyang Shi in the University of Technology, Sydney. Researchers from Columbia University and Henan University also took part. Scientists say many diseases are driven by abnormal proteins. These proteins may be misfolded or overproduced, some built up in the wrong parts of the body. Existing medicines often cannot reach them, especially in the brain. To solve this, the team created nanoparticle-mediated targeting chimeras known as NPTACs. These tiny particles are designed to bind to specific disease proteins. They then help them break down. The approach has shown promise against proteins that drive tumor growth and help cancer cells escape the immune system. Researchers say the platform could be adapted to many diseases and may open a new path for precision medicine. That's all from our Toronto studios. Thank you for watching Muslim News. We are a community channel dedicated to bringing you stories you can trust. Please like, share, and subscribe to our content. You can also comment to let us know what you think of our coverage. You can donate now by visiting muslimnetwork.tv/donate. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV. Salam.